The slap echoed through the private hospital room, sharp and unexpected. No, calm down, baby. It wasn't a physical slap. Mrs. Han Yura would never. But the words she'd just spoken hit Siho with the same force. So you're choosing them over me? Over your mother who gave you life? Siho stood by the window of Seoul's most exclusive cardiac care facility, watching his mother's reflection in the glass. 3 days since her heart attack, 3 days of her recovering in this pristine room with its view of the Han River, 3 days of her building up to this moment. I'm not choosing anyone over anyone, Uma, Siho said quietly, still facing the window. I'm choosing everyone. That's the point. Mrs. Han Yura sat propped against silk pillows, looking deceptively fragile in her hospital gown. But Siho knew his mother. The heart attack had been real, terrifyingly real, but she'd been medically cleared for light stress 2 days ago, and she'd been weaponizing her condition ever since. You flew back to Korea for me, she said, her voice carrying that particular tremor that made grown men feel guilty. You came when I needed you. That means something. It means I love you, Siho said, finally turning to face her. It doesn't mean I'm abandoning my sons. Your sons. She said it like the words tasted bitter. Children you didn't even know existed 6 months ago. Children who are my blood, Siho corrected. Children who are your blood, Uma. Your grandsons, whether you acknowledge them or not.
Mrs. Han looked away, staring at the river view. She was 58, elegant even in illness, with silver threading through her black hair and eyes that had once run a corporate empire alongside Siho's father. She'd spent 3 decades building walls around her family, protecting their bloodline, their reputation, their place in Korean society. And now her son was asking her to let in an American woman and 2 mixed-race children who represented everything she'd been taught to keep separate. In my generation, she said carefully, we believed in preserving our heritage, our culture, keeping things pure. And how did that work out? Siho asked, his tone gentle but unrelenting. You taught me that duty came before happiness, that family obligation meant sacrificing personal desires. So I left the woman I loved in Los Angeles because you called me home. I lost 9 years with my sons because I chose duty over my heart. Is that the heritage you want to preserve? Mrs. Han's hands trembled slightly on the bedsheet. I did what I thought was right. I know you did. Siho sat on the edge of her bed, taking her hand carefully. And I'm not angry about it anymore, Emma, but I'm not repeating it. I have a chance to build something different, a family that spans cultures, that includes everyone, that doesn't make people choose between love and obligation, and I'm asking you to be part of that. What if I can't? Her voice cracked. What if I'm too old, too set in my ways? What if I meet them and I can't love them the way you want me to? Then they'll teach you how, Siho said simply. Emma, my sons are 8 years old, and they've already taught me more about being human than 4 decades of life experience did. They're brilliant and kind, and they have this way of asking questions that makes you realize your entire worldview was built on assumptions you never examined. They sound exhausting.
Siho laughed, actually laughed. They are. They're also extraordinary, and they're coming to Korea whether you're ready or not, because their mother and I are getting married, and we're building a life here. But I'm asking you, please, Alma, give them a chance, meet them, talk to them, and then decide. Mrs. Han was quiet for a long time, watching the river traffic move slowly past the window. Finally, what are their names? Elijah and Isaiah. American names. Their mother chose them. But they also have Korean names that Veronica and I picked together. Do you want to know them? Mrs. Han hesitated, then nodded. Elijah is Ji-hoon. Isaiah is Min-jae. Siho smiled slightly. Veronica insisted they should have names that connect them to both cultures. She's been teaching them about Korean history, Korean values, everything she can learn herself so she can pass it on to them. She sounds... Mrs. Han struggled with the words.
She sounds like someone who cares. She's someone who loves fiercely and fights for her children every single day, Oma. She raised them alone for 8 years. She had every reason to be bitter about what I did, but instead she taught them that people make mistakes and deserve chances to make things right. That's who she is. Mrs. Han closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there were tears. "Bring them," she whispered. "Bring your sons and their mother. I'll try, Siho. I can't promise more than that, but I'll try." Siho pulled his mother into a careful hug, mindful of her chest incision, and the monitor still tracking her heart rhythm. "Thank you, Oma. That's all I'm asking." Before we continue, I've got to ask you something because I'm genuinely curious. Where are you watching this from right now? Like, are you team phone in bed at 2 a.m., team laptop at your desk pretending to work, or team smart TV in the living room? Drop a comment and let me know what device you're on and where in the world you're watching from, because I'm pretty sure nobody actually uses tablets anymore, but I could be wrong. And hey, if you're already invested in this family and their story, trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. Hit that subscribe button because part 2 is about to get intense. Now, let's continue.
The Crescendo Entertainment boardroom was silent in the way rooms get silent when powerful people are trying to decide if they're about to make a terrible mistake. Han Siho stood at the head of the conference table, facing 11 board members who looked varying degrees of skeptical. To his right, David Park, his former head of security, now CEO, sat with a tablet and an expression that said he'd seen this coming. "Chairman Han," said board member Kwan, a man in his 60s who had been with the company since Siho's father founded it. "We appreciate your dedication to maintaining your role as chairman while CEO Park handles daily operations. But the reality is, you're not here. You're in Los Angeles more than you're in Seoul. Your attention is divided. Perhaps it would be better for everyone if you stepped back entirely." Several heads nodded around the table. Siho let the words settle, studying the faces watching him, some sympathetic, some calculating, all of them wondering if he still had what it took to lead. "You're right," Siho said calmly. "My attention is divided. I've been building a relationship with sons I didn't know existed, supporting my mother through a serious health crisis, planning a marriage that will merge two very different families. It's been complicated, messy, and very human." He pulled out his tablet and connected it to the boardroom display. "But here's what you're missing about divided attention," Siho bringing up the first slide. "You're assuming that being physically present equals strategically effective. It doesn't. My 8-year-old sons taught me that." Board member Kwan blinked. "Your sons taught you?" "They taught me that intelligence isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about understanding systems well enough to guide them efficiently." Siho pulled up Crescendo Entertainment's quarterly reports. Under CEO Park's leadership, we've seen 12% revenue growth, 18% increase in employee satisfaction, and we've secured 3 major international partnerships. Daily operations are thriving. The next slide showed a comprehensive strategic vision document, market analysis, growth projections, new business initiatives. "What daily operations don't show is long-term vision," Siho said. "While CEO Park executes brilliantly, I've been working on these: expansion into AI-driven music recommendation algorithms, international artist development programs that identify talent in emerging markets, and entertainment technology investments that position us ahead of industry shifts." Board member Kwan leaned forward, studying the projections. "When did you develop all this?" "Over the past 3 months," Siho said, "while having dinner with my sons every night, while helping them with homework, while learning that an 8-year-old's perspective on resource allocation is surprisingly sophisticated." Director Kim, a younger board member, smiled slightly. "Your sons understand resource allocation?" "They understand that the most valuable resources aren't always financial. Last week, Isaiah, that's one of my sons, he asked me why Crescendo spends 40 million won annually on fancy office furniture, but only allocates 20 million won for employee mental health programs. He said that seemed backward, because happy employees produce better work than employees sitting in expensive chairs." The room was silent. "He's 8, Siho added, "and he's right.
I've redirected 15 million won from facilities budget to expanded mental health coverage and professional development programs. We'll see the impact in next quarter's employee retention rates. An 8-year-old suggested that? Director Kim asked, incredulous. An 8-year-old who's been watching me work and asking questions about why we do things the way we do them, Siho confirmed. He and his brother have this way of cutting through corporate justification to ask the one question that matters. But does it actually help people? And I realized I'd spent 20 years not asking that question enough. Board member Kwan sat back in his chair, studying Siho with new interest. I think we'd all like to meet these children. You will, Siho promised. They're coming to Korea next week with their mother. My mother wants to meet her grandsons. And fair warning, if you ask them their opinion on anything, they'll give you an honest answer whether you're ready for it or not. They're 8, said Director Kim again, like he couldn't quite process this. They're 8 and they read corporate earnings reports for entertainment, Siho said. I wish I was joking. Elijah, my other son, he once spent an entire dinner explaining why Netflix's debt-to-equity ratio wasn't as concerning as investors thought, because it reflected growth investment rather than operational failure. The vote of confidence passed unanimously. As the board members filed out, several stopped to shake Siho's hand and ask about his sons with genuine curiosity rather than polite obligation.
When the room emptied, David Park stood and clasped Siho's shoulder. That was brilliant, using your sons to demonstrate strategic thinking while also humanizing your divided attention. I wasn't using them, Siho said quietly. I was telling the truth. They have taught me more about effective leadership in 3 months than I learned in 20 years of business school and boardrooms. They ask why about everything, David. They don't accept, because that's how we've always done it, as an answer. It's exhausting and illuminating, and it's made me better at this job, not worse. When do they arrive? 5 days. Veronica's wrapping up her semester at the school in Los Angeles, the boys are saying goodbye to their friends there, and then, Siho smiled slightly, then my 2 worlds collide and we see if this actually works. It'll work, David said confidently. You've already done the hard part. What's the hard part? Choosing. You chose them, sir. Everything else is just logistics. 5 days later, Veronica Ashford stood in the arrival hall of Incheon International Airport with a twin on each side, trying very hard not to panic. Mom, you're squeezing too hard, Isaiah said, gently extracting his hand from her grip. Sorry, Veronica loosened her hold. This is a lot. It's gonna be fine, Elijah said, pushing his glasses up his nose with the confidence of someone who'd done risk assessment calculations. Statistically, grandmothers who agree to meet grandchildren they initially had reservations about, showing 82% acceptance rate after first contact. Where did you get that statistic? Veronica asked. I made it up, but it felt reassuring. Did it work? Despite everything, Veronica laughed. A little bit.
Do you think Haomione will like us? Isaiah asked quietly. Veronica crouched down to their eye level. I think she'll love you. Eventually. She just needs time to unlearn some things she was taught when she was young. Can you be patient with her? We're good at patient, Elijah said. Except when we're not, Isaiah added honestly. Except when you're not, Veronica agreed, kissing both their foreheads. But I know you'll try, and that's all. Dad! Both twins took off running before Veronica could finish, and she straightened to see Siho emerge from the crowd, looking tired and hopeful and completely overwhelmed with emotion as 2 small bodies slammed into him at full speed. He caught them both, one in each arm, lifting them off the ground, despite the fact that they were getting too big for this. Veronica followed more slowly, giving them their moment, watching Siho's face transform into something bright and unguarded. When she reached them, Siho pulled her in with one arm while still holding the boys with the other, and for a moment they stood in a tight circle in the middle of the arrivals hall, a family unit that had been broken and scattered and was finally, impossibly, coming back together. Ready? Siho asked quietly, his lips close to Veronica's ear. Not even a little bit, Veronica admitted. Haomione's terrified too, Siho said. So you'll be terrified together. That's basically the same as being brave.
The drive to Mrs. Han's estate took 45 minutes through Seoul traffic that the twins found endlessly fascinating.
They pressed their faces to the windows, pointing out familiar landmarks from when they'd lived here before, chattering in a mix of English and Korean that came so naturally that Veronica sometimes forgot they were switching between languages. "Ooh, that's the cafe where Mom got her coffee every morning," Isaiah said in Korean, then switched to English. "Remember, Mom? The one with the cat?" "I remember," Veronica said. "You two named him Chairman Meow." "Because he sat in the window judging everyone," Elijah explained to Siho. "Very authoritative, hence Chairman." Siho smiled. "Your Korean has gotten even better since you left." "We practice," Isaiah said. "Mom found this language exchange program online where we video call with kids in Seoul and talk about school stuff. It's pretty cool." "They're better at Korean than I am at English," Veronica admitted. "I can order food and ask for directions, and that's about where my skills end." "Your Korean is beautiful," Siho said firmly, "and getting better every day." The estate appeared through the trees exactly as Veronica remembered from photos Siho had shown her. Traditional Korean architecture blended with modern elements, all clean lines and natural materials. Beautiful and slightly intimidating. "Wow," Isaiah breathed. "Halmoni lives here?" "Your Halmoni is what's called old money rich," Elijah explained to his brother, "which means the wealth has been in the family for generations and is therefore more socially acceptable than new money rich." "Where did you learn that?" Veronica asked. "A documentary about the British aristocracy. It was very informative." Siho was laughing as he parked the car. "Come on, let's go meet your grandmother before you two explain class dynamics to her."
Mrs. Han Yura waited in the traditional sitting room, and Veronica could see the woman was absolutely terrified, despite the composed expression. She wore a beautiful hanbok and muted blues, her silver-streaked hair pulled back elegantly, sitting in a chair that somehow managed to be both welcoming and intimidating. But her hands trembled slightly, and her eyes were fixed on the doorway like she was waiting for judgment. "Oma," Siho said gently, entering first, "I'd like you to meet my family." Veronica walked with the twin on each side, and for a long moment nobody moved. Then both boys stepped forward and bowed perfectly, pressing their palms together the way they'd been practicing for weeks. "Halmeoni," they said in unison, their Korean crisp and respectful. "Mamnasio bangapsumnida. Jonun Elijah입니다. Jonun Isaiah입니다." The other twin added, "We are very honored to meet you." Mrs. Han's eyes widened, then filled with tears. "Your Korean is beautiful," she whispered. "We've been practicing," Elijah said, straightening from the bow. "We wanted to show respect. Dad said that's important in Korean culture. And we figured it would be weird to meet our Halmeoni and not be able to talk to her properly, so we studied extra hard." "You," Mrs. Han struggled for words. "You studied Korean to meet me?" "Well, we already spoke Korean. We lived in Seoul for 3 years, but we studied formal Korean specifically for meeting you. There's a difference between how you talk to friends and how you talk to elders. We didn't want to be accidentally disrespectful." Mrs. Han pressed her hand to her mouth, overcome. When she finally spoke, her voice shook. "Siho said you were extraordinary. I thought he was being a proud father, but you really are." "We're pretty normal," Isaiah said. "We just read a lot and ask questions." "Nothing about you is normal," Mrs. Han said, and suddenly she was smiling through her tears. "Come, sit, please. I've had tea prepared." The formal tea service was beautiful. Traditional Korean teas and delicate porcelain, small, elegant rice cakes arranged artfully. The twins sat perfectly still, waiting to be invited to take something, demonstrating patience that Veronica knew was costing them effort because they were 8 and tea ceremonies were boring. "Your father tells me you're very intelligent," Mrs. Han said, studying them. "We like learning," Elijah said carefully. "What do you like to learn about?" "Right now I'm reading about the Joseon dynasty," Isaiah said, "specifically about Sejong the Great and the creation of Hangul. Did you know that before Hangul, only aristocrats could read and write because classical Chinese was too complicated? Sejong created an alphabet system specifically so common people could be literate. That's incredible." "I'm studying Korean architecture," Elijah added. "Traditional Hanok construction uses this system called ondol for floor heating that's actually really sophisticated. The way the heat channels are designed to maximize efficiency while minimizing fuel consumption, it's basically ancient sustainable design. Mrs. Han stared at them. You're 8 years old? Yes, Hermione, both twins confirmed. And you're studying Joseon Dynasty history and architectural engineering? And physics, literature, music theory, and about 6 other things, Veronica said. They get bored easily. I stopped trying to keep up around age 6. We're not trying to show off, Isaiah said earnestly. We just really like learning things. Is that weird? No, Mrs. Han said softly. That's wonderful. You're wonderful. She looked at Veronica with something like awe. You raised them alone for 8 years. I did, Veronica confirmed. And you taught them Korean history, Korean values. I taught them to be proud of both their heritages. They're American and they're Korean, and those things don't contradict each other. They're also Black and Asian, and those things don't contradict each other either. They're whole people who contain multitudes. I just tried not to mess that up.
You did more than not mess it up, Mrs. Han said. You raised kind, brilliant, culturally aware children who care enough about an old woman's feelings to study formal Korean just to make her comfortable. That's extraordinary parenting. Thank you, Veronica said quietly. No, Mrs. Han's voice was firm now. Thank you for giving my son a second chance, for bringing my grandsons into the world, for being strong enough to raise them alone when you shouldn't have had to. Thank you. And just like that, the first wall came down. The next 2 weeks fell into a rhythm that surprised everyone with how natural it felt. The twins returned to Seoul International School, where their arrival caused enough excitement that Mrs. Kim had to calm down the cafeteria before they could eat lunch. Friends they'd made during their previous 3 years in Seoul welcomed them back with enthusiasm. Lucas Kim, the former bully who'd been thoroughly reformed by the twins' verbal takedown months ago, saved them seats at lunch every day and helped them catch up on what they'd missed.
So you're back? Lucas asked on their first day. Like, permanently? Looks like it, Isaiah said. Our parents are getting married and we're living with our Hermione now. That's the grandmother, right? Yeah, Elijah confirmed. She's actually really cool once you get past the formal politeness thing. She taught us how to play Go.
Did you win?
Asked Lucas. She destroyed us, both twins said together, grinning.
At the estate, life settled into a careful dance between Korean tradition and American practicality. Mrs. Han insisted on formal dinners several nights a week, elaborate multi-course meals with specific etiquette rules that the twins followed perfectly, while also occasionally questioning the logic behind them in ways that made everyone laugh. Hermione, Isaiah said one evening, carefully setting down his chopsticks in the proper position. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why is it disrespectful to stick your chopsticks straight up in your rice? Because it resembles the incense sticks we place at ancestral shrines, Mrs. Han explained. It's associated with death and funerals. That makes sense, Isaiah said. Respecting the symbolism of death rituals is important across most cultures. But, Elijah continued, why is it disrespectful to write someone's name in red ink? Because red ink was historically used to write the names of the deceased. So it's also about death symbolism, Elijah said thoughtfully. Korean culture has a lot of rules about respecting death. Most cultures do, Mrs. Han said. Death is universal. The rituals around it help us process grief. That's actually beautiful, Isaiah said. We learned about Mexican Dia de los Muertos last year. That's a holiday where families celebrate deceased loved ones. The whole point is keeping their memory alive through stories and food and celebration. Different cultures, same human need, Elijah added, finding ways to honor the people we've lost. Mrs. Han was quiet for a moment. You know what I love about you two? What? Both twins asked. You could have just said, okay, that's the rule, and moved on. But instead, you asked why, understood the cultural context, and then connected it to universal human experiences. That's not just intelligence, that's wisdom. Mom says wisdom is what happens when you combine knowledge with compassion, Isaiah said. Your mother is a very smart woman, Mrs. Han said, smiling at Veronica across the table.
But while the family was settling into their new life, storm clouds were gathering. Yoon Se-yeon's father, Yoon Jae-min, was not a man who accepted public humiliation quietly.
The broken engagement, the exposure of his daughter's cruelty, the lawsuit threat, all of it had damaged the Yoon family's reputation in Seoul's tight-knit elite circles. So when the formal lawsuit papers were filed, it was comprehensive. Breach of engagement contract, public defamation, emotional distress, loss of social standing. The filing demanded financial compensation, public apology, and restoration of the Yoon family's honor. Siho received the papers at his office, and his first call was to Veronica. "It's happening," he said without preamble. "Yoon Jae-min is suing." "For how much?" Veronica asked, her stomach dropping. "Does it matter? I'm not paying him a single won. He's angry that his daughter got caught being cruel, so he's lashing out legally. Let him. Our lawyers will handle it." "Siho, what if—" "No," Siho said firmly. "We're not letting him intimidate us. We did nothing wrong. Seon framed you for theft in front of our sons. She tried to have you arrested. If anyone should be apologizing, it's her. I'm not backing down." The lawsuit became public within hours. Korean media, always hungry for scandal, descended on the story with enthusiasm. Han Siho's secret American family, the broken engagement mystery, mixed-race sons at the center of elite Korean conflict.
Photographs appeared, the twins walking to school, Veronica shopping for groceries, even Mrs. Han in her garden. Nothing invasive, nothing illegal, but enough to make the family feel exposed. "Mom, are we famous?" Isaiah asked one evening, showing her his phone where a news article featured a photo of him and Elijah entering their school. "You're infamous," Veronica corrected, which is different and not good. "But we're not doing anything wrong," Elijah said, confused. "You're not," Veronica agreed. "But when adults fight, kids often become collateral damage. I'm sorry you're caught in this." "We're not caught in anything," Isaiah said firmly. "We're just living our lives. If adults want to be weird about it, that's their problem." "That's very mature of you," Veronica said. "We learned from the best," both twins said, hugging her from either side. At the estate that night, Sihu and Mrs. Han discussed the lawsuit over tea. "Yoon Jae-min is making a mistake," Mrs. Han said. "He's operating from wounded pride, not strategy. The public is actually sympathetic to you and the boys. Every article I've read shows support for your family." "Doesn't matter if he wins in court," Sihu said. "Just matters that he's making us all miserable in the process." "Then we prepare for battle," Mrs. Han said simply. "We have the truth on our side, and we have the best lawyers in Seoul. Yoon Jae-min picked a fight with the wrong family."
But neither of them knew that a much more dangerous enemy was already watching. Listen, I need to hit pause for just a second because I have to know. Are you still with me? Because if you've made it this far, you're clearly invested in this family, and I need you to drop a comment right now telling me what you think is about to happen. Like, are you team this lawsuit is the real problem, or team something worse is coming? Hit that like button if you're stressed about where this story is going, and subscribe if you want to see how this all plays out, because I promise you, what's coming next is going to blow your mind. Now let's continue. Vice Chairman Ryu Pei-san sat in his corner office at Daemyeong Biogenesis Corporation, 67 floors above Seoul, watching the news coverage of the Han Siho lawsuit with great interest. He was 53, impeccably dressed and completely ruthless in ways that made even other ruthless men uncomfortable. His father, the nominal chairman of Daemyeong, was dying slowly of an aggressive cancer that had already stolen 2 years of his life, and Ryu Tae-san was not the kind of man who accepted death gracefully. "Sir," his assistant said, entering with a tablet, "the research team has submitted their quarterly report." "How much progress?" Ryu asked, without looking away from the news. "Minimal. There's still stock on the telomere degradation problem. Dr. Park says they need cognitive resources they don't currently possess." "Then find them better cognitive resources." "We've recruited from every top university, sir. The problem isn't qualification, it's innovation. They need minds that think differently."
Ryu finally looked at the tablet his assistant held. The screen showed an academic paper from 6 months ago, a conference presentation by Professor Jung from Seoul National University about exceptional cognitive development in bilingual, bicultural children. The paper mentioned, without naming, two 8-year-old brothers with IQ scores above 150 who demonstrated unprecedented analytical reasoning combined with emotional intelligence. Professor Jung, in her enthusiasm for these remarkable children, had presented their anonymous case study at an academic conference attended by researchers from 15 countries, and someone in that audience had sold the information to the highest bidder. These children, Ryu said slowly, Jung's unnamed prodigies. We've identified them? Yes, sir. Han Siho's sons, Elijah and Isaiah Ashford, ages 8, currently living in Seoul with their mother and grandmother. How convenient, Ryu said softly, and their father is currently distracted by a lawsuit from the Yoon family. Yes, sir. The Yoon family, Ryu smiled coldly. Yoon Jaemin's company has been bidding against us for government contract for 5 years. Annoying man. Very prideful, but he can help us. His daughter was involved in some scandal with Han Siho, wasn't she? Broken engagement, sir, rather public. How unfortunate for her. Ryu studied the news coverage again. Photos of 2 small boys with intelligent eyes and confident postures walking to school without security, without protection. And these children attend Seoul International School. Yes, sir. That's not very safe, Ryu observed. Anything could happen to unprotected children in a busy city.
Whatever plan the vice chairman had was communicated within minutes. The assistant left, and Ryu turned back to the view of Seoul spreading out beneath his office. Somewhere in that city, 2 8-year-old boys were living normal lives, completely unaware that their intelligence had made them valuable to a desperate man. He felt no guilt about what he was planning. In his worldview, intelligence was a resource like any other, something to be acquired, utilized, and maximized. The fact that it happened to be housed in children's bodies was inconvenient but not prohibitive. His father was dying. These children could help save him. The math was simple. 3 days later, the kidnapping happened on a Thursday afternoon. The twins were leaving Seoul International School, laughing with Lucas Kim about something that had happened in science class. Mrs. Kim waved goodbye from the entrance, reminding them about homework assignments. The afternoon was warm and ordinary and completely unremarkable. The van pulled up with maintenance company logos on the side, perfectly normal for a school that had constant repair work happening. 6 men in work uniforms emerged, moving like every step they took since birth was purposeful. They wasted no time. Smoke grenades created instant chaos. Students screamed, teachers shouted, and people ran in all directions. In the confusion, chloroform-soaked cloths appeared, and the twins dropped like stones. Isaiah's last conscious thought was, "This is really bad." Elijah's last conscious thought was, "Mom's going to be so scared." Then, nothing.
The professional team had the boys loaded into the van in under 90 seconds. The van disappeared into Seoul traffic before anyone realized what had happened. By the time teachers counted heads and realized Elijah and Isaiah were missing, the van was already at a different location, switching vehicles, destroying evidence. Mrs. Kim called Veronica. "The twins didn't get in their car. We can't find them. Security footage shows smoke and chaos, and then they're just gone." Yoon Jae-min called his lawyers. "My daughter Suryeon is missing. She left therapy an hour ago and never came home. Track her phone, now." Seo got both calls while in a meeting and felt his entire world tilt sideways. The Han estate became a command center within the hour. Siho, Veronica, Mrs. Han, and a team of police investigators crowded around the dining table, now covered in maps and surveillance footage. Veronica sat very still. Tears dried on her face because she'd cried herself empty in the first 10 minutes. Now there was just rage and terror competing for space in her chest. "It was Yoon Jae-min," she said, her voice flat. "This is revenge! He took my babies for revenge!" Seo was already on the phone, his voice lethal. "Yoon Jae-min, where are my sons?" The speakerphone crackled to life with Yoon Jae-min's voice, equally frantic. "What are you talking about? Where is my daughter?" Silence crashed through the room. "What?" Seo said slowly. Suryan is missing, Yoon Jamin shouted. She left her therapy appointment 2 hours ago and vanished. Police are searching. If you did something to her, some twisted revenge. I didn't do anything, Ziho shouted back. My sons were kidnapped from their school.
Your sons, what? 2 hours ago. Professional extraction team. Both men went quiet as the same realization hit. If not you, Ziho said slowly, and not me, Yoon Jae-min continued, then who the hell has our children? They said together. Police investigators exchanged looks. This changed everything. We need to expand our suspect list, the lead investigator said. If both families are victims, we're looking at someone targeting both the Han and Yoon families simultaneously. Why? Mrs. Han demanded. What connects us except this lawsuit? Business, Ziho said grimly. Our companies, Yoon Industries and Crescendo Entertainment, both operate in overlapping markets. If someone wanted to damage both companies, they'd create chaos in the leadership, kidnap heirs, destabilize families, watch us tear each other apart while they do what they actually want to do, Ziho said. This isn't about revenge or the lawsuit. We're missing something bigger. In a warehouse on the outskirts of Seoul that had been converted into a laboratory, Elijah woke up tied to a chair with a chemical taste in his mouth and a pounding headache. Elijah, he said quietly, you awake? Unfortunately, Isaiah's voice came from somewhere to his right. Where are we? Unknown location. Judging by the ambient temperature and lack of street noise, I'd estimate industrial area, possibly warehouse district. Great, so we're kidnapped and in a warehouse. This is officially worse than that time Mom got framed. At least we're together.
Silver lining, Isaiah agreed. You okay? No injuries? Just the headache from whatever they used to knock us out. You? Same. Should we panic now or wait until we know more? Let's wait, Elijah decided. Panic is inefficient. Mom would be proud of our restraint. Mom is probably having a complete breakdown right now. Yeah, Isaiah said quietly. She's gonna be really scared. Dad, too. They sat in silence for a moment, processing their situation. Then Isaiah spoke again. Elijah? Yeah? We're going to be okay, right? Yeah, Elijah said with more confidence than he felt. We're going to be okay. A door opened and both twins looked up to see a guard enter. Large, intimidating, wearing black tactical gear. The guard stopped short, staring at them. You're awake, and you're not crying. Crying doesn't help solve problems, Elijah said practically. Are you going to tell us who kidnapped us and why? Because that information would be really helpful for our risk assessment. The guard blinked. How old are you? 8, both twins said together. And you just asked me to explain your kidnapping for risk assessment purposes? Well, yeah, if we know why we're here, we can better understand what you want and possibly negotiate our release. Basic hostage situation theory. Where do you learn basic hostage situation theory? The guard demanded. YouTube, mostly, Elijah admitted. There are surprisingly detailed videos about surviving dangerous situations. Very educational. The guard looked like his brain was short-circuiting. What the heck? You two are weird. We prefer exceptional, but sure, weird works.
Before the guard could respond, footsteps approached, measured, authoritative, confident. The guard straightened immediately as Vice Chairman Roo Tai-san entered the room. Roo studied the twins with the cold assessment of someone evaluating assets rather than children. You're calmer than I expected, Roo observed. Panicking is inefficient, Elijah repeated. Also, we've been in worse situations, Isaiah added. Sort of. Actually, maybe not worse. This is pretty bad. But we're not going to give you the satisfaction of being scared, Elijah continued, so you can stop with the intimidating entrance and just tell us what you want. Bro, I thought villains were supposed to be scarier than this. Hollywood lies to us, Isaiah. Roo's eyebrows rose slightly. You're 8 years old, and you just told me to stop being intimidating. You're a full-grown adult man and you kidnapped children, Isaiah countered. That's way weirder than us being calm about it. This is embarrassing, and you're supposed to be the villain here? Like, seriously, why not pick on someone your own size? Go fight Godzilla or Superman or something. They'd be more of a challenge. Despite himself, Roo almost smiled. I've heard you're exceptional,
IQ scores above 150, cognitive abilities my research team lacks. Is that why we're here? Elijah asked, his tone sharpening. You want us to solve something for you? Very astute. And if we refuse? You're 8 years old, Rue said coldly. You don't have the option to refuse. Actually, we do, Isaiah said. You can't force our brains to work. We could just give you wrong answers. How would you know the difference? Seriously, I'm so disappointed. How's this man a villain?
Ryu's expression darkened. Then I'd have to find ways to motivate you. By threatening us? Is this supposed to make us scared? What a joke, Elijah asked. That's lazy villainy. Good villains use interesting motivations. Where do you learn about villain motivation? Ryu demanded. Books, mostly, Elijah said. We read a lot. But honestly, you look like those lesser villains in Hollywood movies that die and the viewers don't even notice. What? You kids are. Then they heard it, sobbing from somewhere else in the room. Both twins froze. Who else is here? Elijah asked, his voice suddenly tight. Ryu gestured to a guard who pulled back a partition separating part of the warehouse space. 20 feet away, Seon sat tied to a chair, makeup streaking down her face, terrified and crying. Both twins' eyes went wide. Miss Yoon? They said together, completely shocked. Seon's head snapped up. Elijah? Isaiah? She looked equally stunned. What are you doing here? We were kidnapped, Elijah said. What are you doing here? I was kidnapped too. The twins looked at each other, then at Ryu, understanding dawning. You took us and her? Elijah said slowly. Why? Because your father's company competes with mine, and Miss Yoon's father's company also competes with mine. Taking you gives me leverage over both families. It's efficient. It's insane, Seon shouted through her tears.
It's actually really smart, Isaiah said reluctantly. Evil, but smart. Our parents will immediately blame each other for this, which gives you time to do whatever you actually want to do while they're fighting. Exactly, Ryu said, pleased. You are as intelligent as promised. Great, Elijah muttered. We're impressing the supervillain. Mom would be so proud. Miss Yoon, Isaiah called across the space. Are you okay? No, Sion sobbed. I'm tied to a chair. I'm terrified. I can't breathe. Breathe with me, Elijah said calmly, his voice carrying across the warehouse. In through your nose for 4 counts. Out through your mouth for 6 counts. You can do this. Sion tried, gasping, following his breathing instructions. That's good, Isaiah encouraged. You're doing great. Keep breathing. How are you so calm? Sion asked through tears. We're not calm, Elijah admitted. We're just really good at pretending. It's a survival skill. Ryu watched this exchange with interest. Well, this will be more entertaining than I anticipated. Take them to the lab. Let's see if their intelligence matches their confidence. This was exactly Vice Chairman Ryu Tai-san had planned with his assistant. Sion was forcefully taken when she was leaving a cafe where she'd been meeting with her therapist. After the mansion incident and her public humiliation, she'd finally admitted she needed help. The therapy was helping. She'd even started tentatively rebuilding bridges with the people she had stopped talking to because of pride, sending occasional emails to her friends about books they might like.
She was thinking about what book to recommend next when the van appeared. This time, the team had to work harder. Cyan fought like her life depended on it, screaming and kicking and attracting attention. But they were professionals, and she was one woman. Chloroform, van, gone. Vice Chairman Ryu Tai-san's plan was simple. Make the children of both families disappear so they fight each other while he executes his real plan. It was clever. He needed the children's cognitive abilities because his father was dying. Back to the present. The guards wheeled their chairs through the facility because apparently the kidnapping team had invested in wheelable chairs, which was thoughtful in a terrifying way. The twins and Cyan were brought to a high-tech laboratory filled with equipment, computer screens, and exhausted-looking scientists. A lead scientist, Dr. Park, mid-40s with dark circles under his eyes, looked up as they were brought in. Vice Chairman, these are children.
These are geniuses, Ryu corrected. Use them. Sir, I can't. This is unethical. Your ethics are not my concern. My father is dying. This research will save him. These children will help you complete it. That's the end of the discussion. Dr. Park looked at the twins with clear discomfort and apology. I'm sorry, he mouthed. It's okay, Elijah mouthed back. Not your fault.
Ryu pulled up screens showing complex cellular biology research, telomere extension models, genetic manipulation theories, regenerative medicine equations that made even the twins' eyes widen slightly. This is my life extension project, Ryu explained. My father has terminal cancer. This research is designed to halt cellular aging and regenerate damaged tissue, but we're stuck. My scientist can't make the cognitive leaps necessary to solve the fundamental problems. So you kidnapped children to do it for you, Isaiah said flatly. Now you're slowly getting into the villains league, because that's definitely going in the most evil thing I've ever seen category. Your opinion is noted, Ryu said coldly. Dr. Park, show them the telomere degradation problem. Dr. Park, looking miserable, pulled up equations and models that the twins studied silently. After several minutes, Elijah spoke. This is based on fundamentally flawed assumptions. Every scientist in the room stopped working. What? Dr. Park said. Your telomere degradation model assumes linear decay, but telomeres actually degrade exponentially with environmental variables and cellular stress. Your entire theoretical foundation is wrong. That's what I've been saying, Dr. Park burst out, then caught himself. Also, Elijah continued, studying the screens, even if you could somehow stop cellular aging at the telomere level, you can't stop death. Accidents, disease, organ failure from causes unrelated to aging. Your premise is philosophically impossible. Not impossible, Ryu said coldly. Difficult.
No, Isaiah said firmly. Impossible. You're trying to achieve immortality through cellular manipulation. But death isn't just a cellular process. It's systemic, environmental, accidental. You could have perfect telomeres and still die from literally anything else. Then fix it, Ryu demanded. Make it possible. We can't, Elijah said, because it's not a matter of intelligence. It's a matter of reality. Death is part of life. You can extend life, maybe, but you can't eliminate death. That's not how biology works. Then you're useless to me, Ryu said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Wait, Dr. Park said quickly. They're not useless. They just solved in 5 minutes what we've been stuck on for 6 months. They're telling us the truth. The research itself is flawed. If we redirect toward realistic life extension rather than impossible immortality. My father doesn't have time for realistic, Ryu snapped. He needs impossible. Your father needs you to accept reality, sir wannabe villain, Isaiah said quietly. We're sorry he's dying. That's really sad. But kidnapping kids won't save him. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered across Ryu's face. Pain, maybe. Grief. Then it was gone, replaced by cold determination. Keep working, he ordered his scientists. If these children won't help willingly, find ways to motivate them. He left, and the twins were stuck in the lab with scientists who looked increasingly uncomfortable with the ethical nightmare they were trapped in. So-yeon, still tied up, but close enough now to see and hear everything, spoke up. You two just told a supervillain his entire life's work is scientifically impossible. Well, it is, Elijah said. You're the bravest people I've ever met, So-yeon said, her voice full of awe and terror. Or the craziest. Probably both, as I admitted. Dr. Park approached their chairs, his voice low. I'm sorry. I never wanted this. None of us did. But he's our employer. He funds our research, and his father really is dying. That doesn't make this okay, Elijah said. I know, Dr. Park said miserably. I know it doesn't. Then help us escape, Isaiah said quietly. You're a scientist. You're smart. Help us get out of here." Dr. Park looked torn, glancing at the guards stationed around the lab. "I don't know if I can." "You can," Elijah said firmly. "You just have to choose to." Over the next several hours, while Ryu paced in his office and made increasingly threatening phone calls, the twins did what they did best. They observed, analyzed, and planned. They noticed that the youngest guard, maybe early 20s, clearly uncomfortable with the whole operation, kept frowning whenever Ryu's orders were particularly cruel. They noticed that Dr. Park and two other scientists had a habit of leaving certain equipment unlocked, as if hoping someone might use it. They noticed that Sayan, despite her fear, was watching guard rotation patterns and door locations with increasing focus. And they had an idea. "Miss Yoon," Isaiah whispered during a moment when guards were distracted, "can you scream? Like, really loudly?" "What?" Sayan whispered back, confused. "We need a distraction," Elijah explained quietly. "You start screaming about dying or being terrified or whatever comes naturally, guards will come running, and we move." "That's your plan? Screaming? You have a better one?"
Sayon thought about it, about being helpless, about these two children who destroyed her cruelty with kindness months ago and were now trying to save all their lives, about the fact that she'd wasted years being selfish and terrible, and maybe this was her chance to be brave. "Okay," she whispered, "I'll sell it." And she did. Saeyeon started screaming, raw, terrified screaming about dying and never seeing her father again, and please, someone, anyone, help. It was visceral and real, and immediately brought every guard in the facility running. In the chaos, the young guard accidentally dropped his keys near the twins' chairs. Isaiah grabbed them, freed himself and Elijah with hands that only shook a little. Elijah had been working on a crude signal transmitter using lab equipment. Dr. Park had left the parts unlocked by accident, and he threw it through a high window. Isaiah grabbed chemicals he recognized from science class and mixed them, creating a smoke reaction that set off alarms. Saeyeon freed herself using the confusion. Dr. Park opened the emergency exit and shouted, "Go!" The twins grabbed Saeyeon's hands and ran. Outside, Seoul police were already converging on the location, having traced the signal. The warehouse was surrounded within minutes. Lower-level operatives surrendered immediately, hands up, clearly relieved this was over. But Ryu Taeson was gone, escaped through a private exit, protected with wealth and connections, already on a plane to somewhere without extradition. And then Veronica was there, bursting through police barriers like they didn't exist, screaming her son's names. "Mom!"
The twins crashed into her at full speed, and she collapsed to her knees, pulling them close, sobbing into their hair. Siho was right behind her, wrapping around all three of them, and Mrs. Han arrived moments later, moving faster than her cardiologist would approve, joining the pile of family on the ground. Saeyeon stumbled toward her father, who caught her and held her while she fell apart. Later, much later, at the hospital where everyone was checked despite being physically fine, Yoon Jae-min approached the twins with careful formality. "You're the children," he said stiffly. "Are you Miss Yoon's father?" Isaiah asked, even though he knew the answer. "Yes, and you're Siho's sons." "Yes, sir." Jaemin was quiet for a moment. "My daughter says you saved her life." "We helped each other," Elijah said. "That's what you do when you're in trouble." "She also said you kept her calm when she was terrified," Jaemin continued, "that you taught her breathing exercises and told her she'd be okay. You were children yourselves, scared and kidnapped, and you still took care of her." "She's our friend," Isaiah said simply. "Sort of. We're working on it." Jaemin looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and saw someone different from the spoiled socialite he'd been coddling. He saw a woman who'd survived something terrible and had learned compassion in the process. "The lawsuit," Jaemin said abruptly, looking at Siho. "I'm dropping it." Siho blinked. "What?" "I'm dropping it," Jaemin repeated. What happened today, it made me realize how stupid our fight was. We were so busy blaming each other that we didn't see the real threat. My daughter could have died. Your sons could have died. And it would have been while we were in court fighting over hurt pride. That's very mature of you, Siho said carefully. Your sons taught me that, Jamin said. These 8-year-olds who kept my daughter alive and gave her courage when she had none. If children can be that brave and that kind, maybe adults should try harder. We're trying, Isaiah said seriously. It's hard, but we're trying.
Jamin almost smiled. You're extraordinary children, both of you. Thank you, both twins said together. Later, Soyan asked to speak with Veronica and the twins privately. I need to say something, Soyan said, her voice still shaky from the ordeal. I was terrible to you. At the gala, at my house, all of it. I was cruel because I felt small, and I took it out on people who didn't deserve it. We know, Elijah said, and we forgave you. Even before today, Isaiah added, we figured you were just scared and lashing out. People do that sometimes. You forgave me before I even apologized? Soyan asked, stunned. Friends, Soyan repeated, like the word was foreign. I don't deserve friends like you. Nobody deserves friends, Isaiah said. You just find people who care about you and try not to mess it up too badly. That's very wise, Soyan said, starting to cry again. We learned it from our mom, both twins said, looking at Veronica with pure love. Veronica pulled all 3 of them into a hug, her sons and this woman who'd tried to destroy her, but had ended up becoming something like family instead. 6 months later, Mrs. Hahn's estate was filled with warmth and noise.
The family had grown. Not just the original 4, but Seo-yeon visiting regularly, David Park joining for dinners, even Yoon Jamin appearing occasionally, with carefully chosen wine and halting attempts at humor. Mrs. Hahn sat on the floor with the twins, learning a card game they'd invented that had rules so complicated that even Elijah sometimes forgot them. Wait, why can't I play this card? Mrs. Hahn demanded. Because it's Tuesday, Isaiah explained, like this was obvious. The day of the week matters? Obviously, Elijah said. Tuesday rules are different from Friday rules. This game is ridiculous, Mrs. Hahn declared. You're just mad because you're losing, Isaiah said cheerfully. I'm always losing. You two are impossible. But she was laughing, and so were they. And Veronica watched from the couch where she sat with Siho and felt her heart so full it hurt. We did it, Siho said quietly, watching his mother play cards on the floor with his sons. We actually made this work. You made it work, Veronica corrected. You chose us every single day. Easiest choice I ever made.
That night, after the twins were in bed, they wrote in their shared journal. Dear Journal, today Halmione taught us Korean swear words by accident when she lost at cards. Mom made her apologize. It was hilarious. We've been in Korea for 6 months now. It's starting to feel like home. Not like Los Angeles wasn't home. It was. But this is home too. We can have more than one home. That's okay. Dad says family is choosing each other every day. Mom says it's showing up even when it's hard. Halmione says it's forgiveness. Miss Yoon says it's second chances. We think they're all right. Family is all of that. Also, we solved a telomere degradation problem that actual scientists couldn't figure out. That was pretty cool, even if it was for a supervillain. Love, Elijah, and Isaiah. P.S. Isaiah still thinks PPS is excessive. Elijah. PPPS, it's perfect and you're wrong. Isaiah. Before you go, listen, this story wasn't just about brilliant kids outsmarting kidnappers or families learning to love across cultural divides. It was about the fact that being smart isn't the same as being wise, that cruelty usually comes from fear, and that the bravest thing you can do is choose to change. Those 8-year-olds understood something most adults forget, that people are complicated, that forgiveness isn't weakness, and that family isn't about perfection. It's about showing up and trying and choosing each other even when it's hard. Real strength is admitting you were wrong and doing better. Thank you for watching. You're amazing, and God loves you.